All right, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. It is May 4th. I guess so the May the 4th be with you is the whole corny thing going around today. So it's a beautiful day in Newport, Rhode Island. Boats are going in the water, and it seems like things are crawling out of COVID in our part of the world. So how about Steph and Taylor, what do you guys do in Miami real quick? What's the situation?
I think we're getting close to being back on the water. Regulations are kind of slowly easing up and hoping maybe this week we can get the official word we can go back out.
Yeah, they said Miami-Dade County has opened some parks and boat ramps, but the actual city of Miami has not. So we are technically in the city of Miami here in Coconut Grove. So everything remains closed in our area, but if you go out to Key Biscayne, boat ramp is open out there, and but yeah, we're waiting for official approval to get that U.S. Sailing Center back open.
And Sail GP, I guess not till next year. We'll have to go watch you play then. But for now, how'd you do in your Sail GP e-racing? Virtual.
Oh, it was a struggle. I've gotten better since though, so I'm ready to take it on again.
Oh, you got caned. Let's put it that way. All right, so Tony, how about you? What are you up to, Mr. Ray?
Oh yeah, that's me, just down the road from you in Newport. I just got back from the Newport shipyard, Goat Island. There's a bunch of boats that have come in from the Caribbean and under quarantine for 2 weeks. But it's like a July day out there right now. And so it feels normal, and hopefully good weather continues and we'll be sailing, it won't be in an organized way, probably not led by yacht clubs, but just led by sailors and people with boats. So we're going to start off with small groups and hopefully, at some point in June, if it makes sense and we all feel good about it, we're going sailing. Can't wait.
Yeah, the boatyard sounded like a boatyard yesterday where I was, so that's all good.
You bet.
And Mr. Snow, good to see you back. You made it back from Mexico.
I did. It was nice to get out of the house for a week and help a buddy deliver a boat back from down in Baja. But San Diego was all well. It's a beautiful day here today. And the good news is that the city has officially opened San Diego Bay to boating as of Friday night. And I was able to get out on the water yesterday, and the place was lots of activity out on the bay. I mean, you're only allowed to go out with immediate family members, but there were lots of sailboats out there, more than I would say normal. San Diego, we're kind of spoiled that we get to go sailing all year round, but so it's exciting. And like everybody else is saying, I think we'll be back to somewhat more normal conditions here, hopefully later this month. So all is well.
That's cool. Yeah, I think the general theme I've heard is that people who been able to get on their boats, it's like, man, this feeling of freedom that was pretty unique. And so
yeah, totally.
I think it's a good time for boating, people with boats to just go and use them and get away from land for the first time. So that's great. How about you, Ed? You look like you're still confinement mode there.
Well, I'm in my house, but I got to say, I think that when Taylor says Miami's kind of shut down, I think everybody from there just brought their boats up here. It has been really active, and I wonder if we're going to come out of this and realize that people have used their boats for the first time in a long time because they suddenly were, forced to have time. And I wonder if when we can get back to the stores and the businesses, that there's going to be a whole bunch of boatyards and service places that are going to be super busy because people have gone out and now they want to really fix their boat up and use it again because they love it. But it's been busy on the water. You're not supposed to be right next to each other, and people are behaving well that way. But there's a lot of people using their boats.
Nice. Well, I know Jonathan's been busy using his. He sent an outstanding article at sailingworld.com if you want to go find it. He went to go play in the Taser, so he's putting in lots of hours on the Diamond Girl, or the Rich Girl.
Yeah, we went sailing again last night. It was nice. So we got a little group that goes out twice a week, and again, we stay away from each other when we're rigging and all that stuff. So it all feels pretty safe, and it's definitely great to get out there. Certainly has been good for my mental health, and I think for my wife's as well. it also is sad because, you do this activity and you're there having fun with the other boats, and then you come back to the dock and you can't interact with them in the way that we're used to. So it's like when you're done, there's this, it feels great, but there's also this loss,
All right. Well, hopefully that'll end pretty soon. Dave Paulson, you've been the master of what lake you sailing up in Vermont? You've been putting in some early icebreaker hours on the Arrow. Is that true?
Yeah, temperature finally got over 45s, water temperature, so that's good. And been sailing the RS Arrow a lot, and fortunately have a Velocitech speed puck, so that's kind of kept me company, just kind of playing with that. And usually I'm the only one out there, which is pretty nice in some ways. Occasionally I've got a neighbor who sails an RS Arrow as well with me, and that's fun. But I was thinking when Ed was mentioning about people suddenly starting to use their boats more, my kids live in Boulder, and they have, all the stores are sold out of backcountry gear. And everybody's just, up into the mountains back, people who haven't done it before. And it's just really taken off. And I wonder if what Ed was talking about is, same type of things that happen with sailing. People are going to suddenly jump back into it because it's a good option.
Yeah. How about you, Mr. Eisler? What's happening real quick in your world?
I'm just trying out this brand new fresh bread that came out of the oven. It's really good. But that's amazing. As Chris pointed out, I live like
we're losing this.
Less than a few hundred yards away from the Snow's house. So same report. It was amazing to see all the boats after this empty bay for so long. And it's incredible that almost
you got an audio issue there, Pedro.
Audio issue.
Right. We'll he's got a mouthful of sourdough bread, I think. So maybe we'll come back to you in a minute. Gary, how about you real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Still no recreational boating here on the northern Chesapeake Bay, but based on what I'm seeing around the boatyards and the boatyard at the yacht club and the creek where we live, it feels like there's a group getting ready for the starting line. And as soon as we get the green light from Governor Hogan, you're going to have this mass out there. I took a ride over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge on Saturday just to take a look at the bay. There must have been 50 or 60 fishing boats out there. So I've ordered my fishing pole so I can go out in my sailboat. And if the police come along, well, I'm out fishing. And that's how I'll do it. So hopefully this restriction gets lifted soon. And I'm heartened that some parts of the world like San Diego and Florida that you're able to get out in the water in Rhode Island.
Cool. All right, real quick, Pedro, you got a check-in or you?
Yeah, so I was amazed. Do you have me now?
Yeah, you're good.
So I was amazed, as Chris pointed out, I live a few hundred yards away from him. It's cool to see the boats out on the bay. I was amazed, just as a point of data point, is that it seems like the only groups that are actually going out on the boats are the really, really big families. As Chris points out, the rules only allow you to go out with your immediate family members right now. But it seems like only like huge families. It could be they're bending the rules a little bit. And that's what I'm worried about with all of this. And maybe I'm just being overly cautious. But, just like this group here is responsible for sort of setting the example of how we play by the rules, whether it's moving sails down below or the way we play on the race course and doing our spins when we foul another boat and stuff. It's our responsibility. I've always felt it's our responsibility as sort of the, big guns in the sport is to set a good example. And although we're all really excited about going out, I feel like I really want to set a good example as best I can. Now it'll be hard when I get a phone call saying, hey, Peter, will you come out and do a pro sailing gig? And then watch me eat my words. But for now, it's easy for me to say, hey, let's make sure that we do this right.
All right, duly noted. So our special guest, Sara, is, I guess if you're looking at the Sara Hastreiter, or if you're looking at the gallery view, she's down bottom left. I feel like this is Hollywood Squares here, so you're certainly the famous one amongst the group. Before we talk about your topic for the day, I'm going to attempt to do a quick screen share here and show a little bit of what you were up to before it all went south. So this is a nice little rip you're on here. Let's see.
Yeah, this is an average day in Lorient winter training here in France.
All right, nice little hum on the foils there.
Yeah, so that's on the Figaro 3. We had just put that boat in the water and only had a few days on it. We'd been training with a different boat the previous month. So yeah, I mean, the training here has been one low pressure system after another. I think this winter they had 21 low pressure systems come through when they normally average about 7. So that made for some really hard training yards over here.
All right, so let's back up for a second. So for those who don't know you, I mean, I sort of remember meeting you some time ago. It was before he became super famous. But if I remember right, you grew up in Montana, somehow found your ways in the islands and went from day sailing charter boats to, transatlantic deliveries on a trimaran. And next thing you know, Team SEA around the world, and you've been started climbing mountains, quite a few summits, and now you're off on this double-handed Olympic sailing campaign is what we want to talk about today. So maybe just a super quick story on how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, that's mostly the gist of it, except I grew up in Wyoming, and I made my way to the Caribbean in 2008, lived there permanently for a while. Starting 2010, I began sailing. I did a transatlantic with the ARC Europe. I just really wanted to cross an ocean, and I found out people could do it professionally, and I thought it was a great way to pay off my student loans while continuing to travel and have adventure, and very quickly focused on the racing side and the ocean racing side, and kind of made my way to the Caribbean as a mate. And then people said if I wanted to keep racing, to go to Newport, Rhode Island. So I headed up there, made a lot of really great connections through weeknight sailing and deliveries, and really just focused on the bigger race boats and trying to get opportunities there. And so when SCA became available in August 2012, I think is when we first applied, that was just everything. That was everything to me, was having that opportunity. So I worked really, really hard and became a part of that team full time later on after about a 8-month trial process with them. And then had a really fantastic experience sailing around the world with women. I'm super passionate about Volvo Ocean Race and opportunities for women as well. Following that, we put together the Magenta Project, which I still mentor through quite a bit. And we weren't able to secure funding as a team to move forward into the next ocean race, which is the last edition. And so I personally wanted a challenge as big as the Volvo was for me. And I needed it to be something that would be available to me no matter what. And as it stood at that time, Mark Turner had not made the announcement to have the rules where women would have opportunities in the next race. So I chose to climb Mount Everest, and I kind of set out a 2-year path on how I could do that. And then as I started down that path, the project became much bigger to be the first female to sail the 7 oceans and climb the highest peak on each continent. So I've been working on that project for the past 3 years. I've climbed 4 of the 7 summits. This last one, I didn't quite make it to the top, so I'm going to have to do the entire mountain again to get the last 1,300 feet that I left up there. That was gutting, but it was a learning experience as well. And, you really have to respect Mother Nature, and that's something that, I really am humbled by continuously in the mountains and on the oceans.
So you said this double-handed Olympic sailing thing, that sounds like fun. Maybe quickly, how'd you get the boat? You've been in France. And what's been training like so far on the boat?
I was sailing with a gentleman that most of us are familiar with, Malcolm Gefter, out of Newport, Rhode Island. I was sailing with him the past 2 summers on his TF10 foiling trimaran. And it was really Malcolm who presented the idea to me. And even though I've been climbing, I've still been sailing professionally for the past few years. Once he presented it to me, and I sat down with my journal and I went through all the different scenarios, it really was a continuation of everything I'd built up in my career at this point. And I felt like it was a really evident next step into something that, I can continue my passion in the sport. I can continue my passion to, set big goals for myself. So with the support of Malcolm, really, I've pushed forward on this. And the Figaro over here is he and a partner's private vessel. So I came over as the project manager to commission the boat. And then in the meantime, charter a boat and, set myself down the path to begin training over here in France with, one of the best training facilities we have in the world for offshore sailing.
So what's it like sailing that Figaro boat? Is it's kind of weird with the side foils, or what's have you gotten used to that yet?
No, it's an incredibly tricky boat with all the different foils, and the minute you fall off the flow on the foils, you're losing traction and speed, and it's very, very tricky and temperamental. And so it's a lot of physical work as well. And one of the things for me is just that every part of this discipline at this moment is a very steep learning curve for me. I'm jumping into a new boat. I'm jumping into a new discipline. I'm jumping into a double-handed. So it's really been quite difficult, especially because it's been so windy. We take for granted that out in Newport, we've got like 10 to 15 knots to just go out and enjoy the experience. And here it's just been 25, 30, 35. We've even had like over 40 knots on training days here where you're just getting, your butt handed to you, really. Very, very physical. So exhausting days, but it shows you the different areas that you need to work on pretty quickly. So I do appreciate that.
You might as well train when you go big, go hard early. I think, Jonathan, hey, early on, you've been following this, and you sort of mentioned this sort of the physical side of it and the, the teamwork element. What do you think of what Sara's going through so far in terms of trying to get ahead on this campaign?
Yeah, well, Sara's doing it the way that I think it should be done, by going to the place where the level of competition is the highest, which is France. I wish we had that type of training in the US, but the fact is we just don't at this time. And we'll try to build it, but right now there's no question that the center of gravity for that part of the sport is in France. So, if you want to get good at something, don't take halfway measures, go and learn from the best, sail against the best, and try to jumpstart your skills, which I think Sara has done really effectively.
And yeah, Stephanie, you've got a similar campaign, but your program, your boat is a much, much smaller beast. Any advice for Sara?
Just send it, I think.
I got a question for Sara though. Have you spent any nights on that thing? It's obviously a really small boat. Is it how's life on board? It's got to be pretty crammed. I know that 65s are pretty tight, sailing with that many people, but I can imagine this is definitely a new level of tight.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it life on board, Taylor. It's more like a space where you can exist. Like I can't even stand up in any section of the boat down below. Once you've got a spinnaker down there to pack, like there's nothing. It's completely, sparse. There's no comfort. The only form of a place to sit down is, potentially the bottom step. I've never thought I would look at a Volvo 65 and think like, that's comfortable. But the Figaro 3 is another world. And you know, we initially came over here with the intention to do the Age Desert, which is a 20-day race from France to St. Bart's. And the first time I went down below on the boat, I was like, what have I done to myself? You know, this is a terrible idea. But, you know, obviously the opportunity is no longer there because everything's canceled. But, you know, it's one of those boats you'd much rather be on deck than down below at any given point, for sure.
Yeah, cool.
Tony, any advice on how to run this program efficiently?
You know, if you can get your money early and get sailing, I mean, you're doing it in the right spot. Like Jonathan said, it's super cool and it's inspiring. And I mean, I don't think I have to tell Sarah this, but the more you can get your story out there, obviously it helps you, but it helps, you know, all the young sailors, you know, that are out there thinking about the same thing. So it's just super cool. Great to see.
So I think Mr. Jobson there, this was this whole Olympic marathon thing was kind of, I heard somewhat your idea. What say you about sending Sarah out and torturing her in a 30-foot boat?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure it would be torture to be in a 30-foot boat, particularly now that we're all sequestered and not sailing. But the concept, it was to get a long distance race in the Olympic Games. And the challenge there as a board member at World Sailing was, well, how do you get something like that through? The idea had been around, King Constantine actually had it in the 1960s, maybe we should do something like this. So when I came up with the idea for a long distance race in the Olympic Games, I thought I needed some good help. So I recruited Stan Honey to chair the Offshore and Oceanic Committee. And he slowly got everybody in line that we should do this. And when you think that there's 10 classes in the Olympic Games, sailing classes, surely one of them could be a keel boat and a long distance race. And then the trend toward mixed racing, a male and female in the same crew, was so successful with the NACRA in Rio that became an obvious thing. Well, let's do that in a double-handed long distance race. And the concept was 3 days, 2 nights. It'll be varied length depending on the weather, but maybe 400 to 500 miles, something like that, to finish the race near one of the big stadiums. So we got a lot of interest. And the cool thing is, using Stan's graphics, you can follow this race 24 hours a day in all time zones. It'd be the sailing equivalent to a marathon. And we could have gaming next to it, like you do with the Volvo Ocean Race. And when we finally had a vote, I think we got 84% of the member national authorities to vote in favor of it. And of course, the French supported it big time for Marseille in 2024. And the organizers in LA for 2028 were very much behind it. And you can think about sailing off Catalina and the other Channel Islands off the coast would be pretty special. So I'm enthused about it, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of teams. I can see a couple sitting there right now on our telecast that maybe we could see those superstars teaming up. So anyway, and we tried one in Annapolis, Dave, which we'll talk about at some other date, but it worked out really well. Randy Smythe ended up winning it after being over the line at the start. But anyway, it's an exciting concept.
Well, it seems to me, maybe, you know, Peter or Ed, you can chime in here. This is kind of an opportunity for somebody like Sarah to sort of partner up with you know, it's a good experienced co-ed, to build a good experienced co-ed team. You can bring in guys like, you know, Randy, who's done plenty. And I know Louis Perron has been doing some stuff over in France and stuff. So you can have this sort of multi-generational co-ed kind of setup as well, too. It kind of opens up the door for a lot of combinations.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's so much more that's going on a race like this. I mean, you know, Derry just says, you know, racing off of LA and Catalina and all that. You know, immediately I thought, ooh, you know, beautiful breeze during the day, a little tricky at night. You know, it's going to be interesting. And Marseille as a venue, there's a lot going on, and it's not just the type of thing that would I guess, benefit or it's not going to just be good for people that are good sailors. This is people that are good logistical managers. You got to do a lot to prepare and to organize and understand what's happening all around you on the, out beyond the islands. And, there's just a whole bunch going on. So really different part of the sport. And, with all the electronics that we have now and all the new technologies for helping to steer and furlers, and there's just a whole bunch of new stuff that can be used in a way that a lot of people aren't familiar with yet, and those are things that will trickle down into the sport as well. So interesting, to go this direction. Very different for the Olympics, but it's we'll see if it's something everybody enjoys watching.
You've certainly learned the hard way of the logistics side of this recently, haven't you, Sarah?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I'm jumping into this whole situation early is because I know there's so much to prepare. And, as you're speaking about, there's so much to prepare for each race course when there's only two of you and you're both equally responsible for what's to come over the next, 72 hours. But prior to that as well, just the logistics of the boats and moving these things internationally. Like I have a situation right now, my shipping just got moved up 5 weeks. I was planning when we come out of quarantine here to have a few extra weeks of training over here before I got back to the US, and now my boat's going on a truck on Wednesday. So, just like the sport of sailing, we have to continuously be flexible and to, reset goals and, just adjust to how the wind is changing. You're never going to change the wind. So it's, trying to be as prepared as possible for as many scenarios as possible, as we all know we have to do in our sport. But yeah, it's been a bit stressful to try to figure all of these different things out while being in quarantine. And over here in France, the quarantine's fairly strict. So yeah, it's been difficult at times, but we're working through it. I'm working through it by myself.
So real quick, how's your, maybe describe your best day so far on in training? Just, was the most memorable moment you've had?
I think the most exciting thing was really just getting the new boat out on the water. We have a new cableless North Code 0, and we had about 25 knots again, and just being able to send it and getting those foils humming and just having a moment of where you get to just focus on the pleasure of what you're doing, just doing a straight line, going fast. I mean, that's what we're there for. You think about offshore sailing and how much of it is actually purely enjoyable, and it is a small part of it, but the parts of it that are good make it all worthwhile. I remember like in the Southern Ocean, there was this one afternoon of sailing that made the entire 20 days of misery worth it. And it's hard for people to understand that that's what we're there for. But those moments of just like pure sending it, as Steph says, like they beat all the work that you have to do to get there.
Very cool. Yeah, Stephanie, you don't have the pleasure of just sending it. You've got a lot of maneuvers, and we're going to come back to Sarah, because we're sort of, I think I promised Stephanie a bit of show and tell. Did you tee up a good boat handling video for us?
Yeah, I got some video teed up. Conveniently, my hard drive died this morning and wasn't working. So I'll do what I can with what I have. I will say though, I have some mad respect for what Sarah's doing. I definitely like my bed at night, so I don't think I'll be doing that for 2024. But
I thought we were going offshore together. Yeah.
Gary's idea.
Oh, well, that's only 2 nights.
Could be worse.
All right. Well, can you?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little screen share here. So yeah, I think just thinking about 49er sailing, I love training in the boat handling. It's a great challenge physically and mentally, and given the unstable platform of the boat, there's little room for error and a lot of opportunity to gain. One cool thing about sailing this boat, after the guys have sailed it for so long, is being able to look up to how the men sail the boat, and they really have some amazing boat handling, and it's pretty cool to look up to that as a team in the class. So I'm just going to show you guys 3 examples of some bearaways. It's probably my most favorite part to train. And I think it's the hardest part to learn when you start sailing a 49er. So we're just going to go through an example here. This is in Key Biscayne earlier this month, or in March. Just kind of thinking through like our sheet controls here. Like, so one thing that we do in our windy bearaways is that Maggie has the main sheet, and I think it gives us a lot of control through our bearaways. So I have the jib sheet and she has the main sheet. I guess my biggest job is to keep the boat flat and fast for her, to make her job a lot easier. And I think that's like the biggest priority, is to make the crew's job easier, because they definitely do all the hard work on the boat. So yeah, controls and sheets being prepped are probably the most important thing, and then the timing of it all. We have a little bit of a system with her having the main sheet. We have to count down into it. So you can see here, I go burp the jib, say 2, 1, and then here we go. Maggie eases the main, hands it off, and then goes for the hoist. And she's just an absolute animal on the boat. And then we'll go into kind of some onboard footage here. You can see this is in the ocean in Miami in March. Pretty wavy day. It had been blowing from the northeast for a while, so it was just perfect conditions to go out and train for Japan. So you can see here we've just made it through the bearaway. Maggie comes in, kind of all about timing it on the waves in these conditions. And unfortunately,
hey, Stephanie,
yes,
you gotta share that particular clip. You gotta redo your share.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Stop share. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's okay.
Technical difficulties. Here we go. All right, so in the ocean here, pretty wavy day. This is a good example of how with the waves we just really have to time it all out. And it's pretty easy to want to rush it, like especially in racing, to come around the windward mark and just like rush right into the bearaway. But with the waves, there's just such a big chance of slowing down, and you're really risking pitch pulling. So really aim to just keep the boat in control, get it flat, keep it under control, and then Maggie goes in for the hoist. And the longer the hoist takes, the more opportunity there is to have something go wrong. And unfortunately here, the kite's pretty full of water, but she still goes full beast mode on the thing. But yeah, I just try to, I think as the helm, and I'm sure Jonathan can attest to this, it's pretty important that you're just trying to make your crew's life as easy as you can. I do feel pretty bad whenever I don't. And then here, we'll just reshare.
How important is it to like keep the boat ripping through this in the breezy conditions, right? Like,
yeah,
it must
super
be
important.
pretty hectic if your apparent wind ends up going back, and these boats aren't really meant to go slow downwind. So
yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure that once we do have that main sheet handoff, that we have like really good control of the boat, and I'm keeping the boat flat and fast. And in the waves here, like talking her through like a big wave, and there might be a time when she just bails on the hoist and brings her weight up to windward, so that we can steer around the waves. Are you guys seeing?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. This? So here's are you seeing onboard footage here?
Yep.
Going upwind.
Port tack.
Cool. Yep. So here's a little bit of a tack set. I think this is just a fun example of more of a tactical bearaway. You guys probably can't see, but there's a boat to windward of us here, and we're a bit thin on ley line coming into the mark. You can see Maggie going in for controls pretty late, just so we can hold our lane. And we initially stay pretty high to defend on these guys. Again, Maggie has the main sheet here, we make the bearaway, just trying to keep it in control through the waves. Then she comes in and we go real low. You can see me coming off the wire there. We go real low because the boat behind us went low as well. So just a couple things to think about during the bearaway is, setting yourself up tactically. And I think that's like one of the coolest challenges of it, is how you can set yourself up for success for the rest of the run. And then one more, because we can't end this without a wipeout.
There you go.
We'll go full screen here.
Dr. Crash.
Dr. Crash, exactly. So this was in Miami. We were training with Lucy Wilmot and Nate Hausberg. We were doing figure eights, and when it's windy, doing figure eights is like honestly the best training you can do, because if you can bear away and jive and in a 49er, you can pretty much conquer the whole race course. So here we have it. Lucy and Nate come around, wipe out, and just watch me on our boat. Oh my God. Coming around for a little water skiing.
Nice save.
Maggie saved it. So yeah, the boat is just so fun to sail, and I just love it. It's the boat handling aspect of it is such a great challenge physically and mentally, and that's what keeps me coming back for more on this boat.
I can
Absolutely
tell
jealous
you,
of it.
I had the opportunity to sail Stephanie one day on this thing, and literally a fish out of water, just flopping in the cockpit.
Yeah, I've never laughed so hard.
Yeah. So Maggie makes that look really good. That's pretty impressive.
You guys have like the nightly comparative of who has the most nutty bearway, the F50 versus,
Could be a competition.
Yeah, we'll throw a little clip together and maybe put a poll up online.
Yeah. Very cool. Anybody have any questions for them before we get going?
I mean, I would ask just, I'm sure it's something people are really curious about, Steph, but just, how are you mentally adjusting to, you were supposed to be going to the Olympics in what, like 6 weeks or something, and then now it's a full year away. So do you feel as if that's, ooh, I have more time to train, or does it feel like, no, I was ready now, and now it's giving other people a chance to catch up to you? Like, how are you feeling about that?
We're definitely excited about more time. Obviously right now the training is looking a bit different than we'd like it to be, but I think we have some really great momentum from the Worlds, and we're excited to carry that forward into the next year. And we're a pretty young team in the fleet. Our age is pretty old, but our experience is young compared to some of the other teams. So I'd say we're really excited to have some more time, and there's just so much to learn and so many different stones to turn over, and we really want to just keep hammering forward, and we're excited for all this, for the time ahead.
So you both have both you and Sarah both have long-term campaigns.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thanks everybody for the big share. That was awesome. Definitely makes me want to go on. I don't know if I'd be able to sail that boat, but
You're welcome anytime.
I think Jonathan,
if I can hang it better than Taylor.
What do you got, Jonathan?
It was just, you mentioned the training in the months ahead. What is that going to consist of?
Well, we kind of have a few different options in the works depending on what, travel limitations are like. All of our events have been canceled or postponed, and we don't have a schedule for anything. Maybe hoping for something in Europe in the fall, but not sure. We're kind of mentally prepared to not race until Palma of next year. So just trying to make the most out of the time. And our container that was supposed to go to Japan got rerouted and sent to Long Beach. So we're hoping to train in Long Beach this summer and get some nice waves and some nice breeze. But that being said, we have a boat here in Miami that we can go use too, and could be nice training for Japan with the heat. So maybe we'll do that. And if we're lucky, we can get to Europe and do some racing. And I think, we're mentally prepared to be on our own, training on our own for a while and domestically. But if we can get international training partners or domestic training partners or travel to Europe and do any racing, that'll just be icing on the cake.
Very cool. So real quick, Sarah, as we follow along your campaign, how can people continue to follow what you're up to?
I've been quiet a little bit on social media for a while, just because we've been, putting all the pieces together to make this a viable campaign. And I think we'll be able to announce some things officially pretty soon. But, in the meantime, just keeping my head down. Hopefully, I'll be headed back to Newport soon. Everyone's guess is as good as mine and when we can get out on the water together. But I'm still really hoping that the July event, which is the U.S. qualifier for the World Sailing Championship in Malta, so we're doing that around the Chicago Mac race. I'm still really hoping that one will happen. As of right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't heard that it's canceled
So
yet.
that decision will be made tomorrow,
Okay.
World Sailing Board meeting. So check back in 2 days. I'll probably have some information whether that's a thumb up or not.
Yeah. And, you know, that's my next official goal. So, you know, as things build up, we'll either be sharing things on social media about the events that are coming and the training that we're doing for them, or, you know, kind of approaching it, if we don't have events, approaching it in a way of just like sharing the structure of the training that we're going through. Because I think being slightly ahead of the curve, I really want to concentrate now, after throwing myself in the deep end, kind of the building blocks of the base of, you know, my next 4 years. I want to give some specific chunks of time to things I'd like to concentrate on for a while. So that might be what this year ends up looking like if these competitions aren't able to happen.
All right, super cool. So you got an Instagram handle or anything can follow along?
Yes, if you can spell my last name, Sara_Hastreiter on Instagram. My Facebook is open, and I'm on Twitter, so you guys can find me there. And I do try to share, Steph and I share a lot of our just physical training, because people are generally pretty curious about how we stay in shape for this specific sport. We're both trained by Sailing Performance Training, so we share quite a bit on there, I think.
All right, so we'll follow you there, and we'll do the same thing. We'll keep training, stay healthy, and go sailing. Sound like a plan, everybody?
Like a great plan.
Sounds like a great plan.
All right, well, thank you very much. We'll, I guess we'll wrap it up. We hit our time limit, so hopefully we'll see everybody next week with some more updates.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Dave.
Thanks
All right,
for
have a
having me,
good-
guys.
Nice job, Sarah.
Nice to see you.
All right,
everyone.
thanks, Sarah.